I want to make sure my listeners know that you have the book out, Spy. Give us the title again, and then I'll get my listener or my caller on.
Actually, we've got two books out. They're both about the same topic. One of them is for a secular audience, and the other one is for a Christian audience. The secular book is called Spychips, How Major Corporations and Government Plan to Track Your Every Move with RFID. It details in their own words companies' plans to use tiny microchip tracking devices embedded in people's clothing, in their shoes, in their the items in their refrigerator, and their medicine cabinet to essentially track everywhere people go and everything they do for marketing purposes and also for law enforcement purposes. It is several hundred footnotes, but it's also a lively read. It's been likened to a techno-thriller. We just won the Lysander Spooner Award for advancing the literature of liberty. We were a bestseller in Amazon, reaching number 6, I believe, in nonfiction overall.
Wow.
The book is in its 5th printing. It sold tens of thousands of copies, and it is opening an awful lot of eyes out there. And you can find that in any bookstore. You can order it from our website at spychips.com. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, Borders, any major bookstore. And the Christian book is called The Spychips Threat, so just add the word threat on there. Why Christians Should Resist RFID and Electronic Surveillance. And it's essentially the same information plus 2 extra chapters of interest to Christians that deal with biblical prophecy about the mark of the beast and how some are concerned that this technology could actually enable the fulfillment of that prophecy through implants and the retail surveillance technology that I've researched.
Well, maybe you can get me a copy of that book so I can get you back on and talk about it.
I'd love to. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get you one right away.
Caller, what's your first name, please, and where are you calling from? And I apologize for having to make you wait a little bit.
Don't worry about it, Gianni. Hi, this is Ken Cox.
Hi, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well. And, of course, I'm in Durham, North Carolina, and I was listening to the program this evening, and it's unbelievable the things that I'm hearing, but it's great information. And I wanted to ask Carolyn, Catherine, wish she expand a little bit more on what she was just talking about how this is being looked at, the technology as the mark of the beast. Could she expand just a little bit more on that? Because she hit on it. I was like, wow, she stole my thunder.
Well, let's talk about that, Ken. That's a great question. And actually, Gianni, I think it probably, I'd be delighted to come back on your show and devote an entire program to talking about that issue specifically. For those who aren't familiar with the Mark of the Beast prophecy, it is in the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation. It is in the chapter 13, and it's the last 3 verses of that chapter, verses 16 through 18. So chapter 13, the last 3 sections, and it essentially talks about a time when all people, I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't have my Bible open in front of me, but all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and imprisoned, will be required to have a mark on their right hand or their forehead, and without that mark, they will not be able to buy or sell. That mark represents a number, and the Bible tells us it is the number of a man, and it tells us that let he who has understanding calculate the number, because it is the number of a man, and the number is 660 and 6, which is where we get the 666. The 666 part I have no guesses about. I don't know what that is, but I'll tell you in terms of the using a number to buy and sell, if you look back nearly 2,000 years ago when this prophecy was written on the Isle of Patmos off of Greece by John, when he wrote that prophecy, there were several components to that were pretty much incomprehensible at that particular period in time. He had actually had a vision, and in this vision he was told to report back this information and wrote it down, and that's how it wound up in the Bible. And in the vision must have been an incredible vision to him, because at that period in time, it was not possible for people to even identify the extent of the planet. I don't even think that they knew that there was a planet as a ball. I think they saw that it was sort of flat, and who knew where the end was. Mm-hmm. So the idea of identifying everyone on the earth and then having a system not only that could identify everyone on earth, but could also require them or somehow even enable them to make a payment through means of a mark or something in their hand or forehead must have been equally incomprehensible. And then the idea that you could somehow do payments based on numbers alone. I mean, think about it. Back then, they were exchanging, there were coins, but they were precious metals, and people did trades, and they would trade animals and rugs and other things. So there was sort of a barter system. There was coinage, but there certainly was nothing like what we use today, where we have numerical-based banking systems. And I did a lot of research. This is something that's been interesting to me for years, into how people have interpreted that scripture throughout the centuries. And I have a book on Revelation 13 that was a very boring scholarly book that was written by someone also doing their doctoral research. And he actually went through and looked at all of the attempts to explain this throughout England in the 1600s. And it fills an entire book with small print of people's attempts to try to make sense of this. And when you look back on it now, it's crazy. I mean, these people, you got to take the number and you got to divide it, take the number of the Pope, and then you change each letter into some number, and then you got to add them all up and divide them by 17 and stand on your head, and when you're all done, you get 666. And, Isaac Newton's a good example. One of the most brilliant men who's ever lived on the earth, Isaac Newton, who had discovered gravity and did lots of physics, wrote just reams of volumes in physics that even today is still considered some of the most valuable contributions to science. Few people realize he actually devoted over 1 million words to trying to decipher biblical prophecy. And one of the things he focused on was that particular passage. And here you have one of the most brilliant minds in science, but at the time when he lived, he could not make sense out of it. So he really wasted years of his life trying to. Now, I bring all that up to say, here we are in 2006. You can ask any 10-year-old, how do you pay with a number? And they'll roll their eyes and say, well, duh, with a credit card. Or you don't even need a credit card. You can just do it with a number to count. And just read your number over the phone to someone, and they can automatically charge it to your credit card. So the number part we've got taken care of. And that's literally only been in the last, I'd say, 3 to 5 years that the technology to put together the system where every point of sale, every cash register was hooked up to the Internet, was capable of going into a system and verifying the identity and the payment ability of a particular individual based on a number anywhere on the globe. And when I say anywhere on the globe, there are lots of pieces that had to come together to make this happen. One of them is thanks to the supermarket card, which is why I've been so interested in this for so many years. Thanks to the supermarket card, retailers have set up very sophisticated data collection systems associated with those cash registers. So now when you go into a store, the cash register used to be, even just 20 years ago, a calculator with a cash drawer. Now it is a high-speed, ubiquitously networked computer terminal that is hooked up via the Internet, and in many cases wireless technology, satellite technology, to a centralized database. And when you make a purchase there and you scan your frequent shopper card, all of the system to identify you and record your purchases kicks into gear. Now, not only can you do that at your local, Safeway or Stop and Shop or your Kroger or Walmart, whatever, you can also do that now on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. You can do that out in the middle of the Sahara Desert. You can do that miles away from any infrastructure thanks to wireless technology, to satellite technology, to cell phone technology. So several pieces had to come together. The database ability to create the structure, the ability to wire all of those point-of-sale cash registers into centralized systems, and then the ability to make this function anywhere on Earth, and that's through the Internet and through cellular technology. So we now have the ability to do one piece of that prophecy, which is to require a number of everyone to buy and sell. Now, does that mean that that it's impending, that it'll be here any minute? I have no idea. But I will say that for the first time in history, after 2,000 years of people scratching their heads over this, we are the first generation to be living in a period of time where it is technically and technologically possible to fulfill that scripture. And then the second piece that has just come into play in the last probably I'd say 2 years is the mark component, or at least the potential to have something in your hand or your forehead capable of transmitting a number. And that is the same technology we were just talking about, the USDA requiring now that farmers put into their animals these implantable microchips, tiny computer chips the size of a grain of sand hooked up to miniature antennas, encapsulated in glass, about the size of an elongated tic-tac, if you can picture that, that can be injected through a syringe. They plunge the syringe into the flesh, they push the plunger, and voila, the microchip slips right in. They put a little Band-Aid on it, wipe up the blood, and that's the end of it. And now someone has a microchip in them. Already millions of dogs and cats around the country have been chipped with this technology. Now they're about to chip every single food animal in the country, which is an extraordinary undertaking. And now there is a version that can be placed into human beings. And in our website, and let me give people some resources because I'm sure anyone hearing this probably wants to learn more.
Okay, well, before you do that, now, Ken, do you have anything else you want to ask? Or
I just appreciate her work so much. I really do. I'm just fascinated by her work, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to hang up because I want to hear your contact information. I want to get your report, and I would just love to read your material.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. I sure appreciate it. I'll give everybody an opportunity to get a pen here. And let me tell you a couple of things. We've got the book, The Spy Chips Threat. If you're a Christian or if you're interested in Christian issues, The Spy Chips Threat is available at any Christian bookstore. It's also on Amazon.com. I don't use Amazon because they require a credit card, and I don't use a credit card, but that's one place you can get it if you're an Amazon shopper. They have it at a discount there. And also your local Christian bookstore should either carry a copy or be able to get one for you. The other book is Spy Chips, How Major Corporations and Government Plan to Track Your Every Move with RFID. That's the overall RFID issue. We have a whole chapter in there about chipping human beings with deep organ implants that can electroshock people and all kinds of creepy stuff that these guys have patented and come up with. But most of those books are dealing with the commercial use of RFID technology by major corporations like IBM and Philips and Procter & Gamble and Gillette and all the companies that we have products in our homes. The other resource I want to make available to people, because I know not everyone is in a position to buy a book, is on our website at spychips.com. If you have Internet access, we have a newsletter, which lately has been a little less frequent than I'd like it to be because I've been finishing my dissertation. But we have a free newsletter on there you can sign up for. You can also join Caspian, which is the worldwide organization with now over 12,000 members that I founded back in '99 when I was working on supermarket cards. We work on a whole variety of consumer privacy issues. We're nonpartisan, non-secular, non-religious. We're open to anybody who agrees that it's wrong to spy on people through the things and services that they buy. You can sign up for that right there on our homepage at spychips.com, or you can go to nocards. I'll just make it easy and say nocards.com. Both of those websites will give you that information. And if you want to get an example of how just one company has abused this, you can go to boycottgillette.com. And I don't use Gillette products anymore. I don't use Procter & Gamble products anymore because those two companies were essentially the driving force behind the adoption of RFID and slipping it into people's products and using it to spy on them. So hopefully, and then my email address real quick is KM as in Mary A, at spychips, spychips.com. I've already gotten a couple of requests for that, supermarket articles, so if you want to get copies of that, I'll be happy to send them to you.
Now, what is the organization that you founded, Caspian, doing to stop this NACE situation that will progress to all of us having the chip?
Well, let me back up a little bit. We have been working, particularly here in New Hampshire, where we have a local chapter, we've been working on legislation in the state of New Hampshire that would require a label or a notice on something containing an RFID tag. And I know we talked about this, Gianni, in our last interview, where I talked about how they can actually embed these things into the soles of your shoes. We have information that Philips, for example, wants to embed readers in the floor to actually, as you step on the floor tiles or on the carpet, they could actually read the tag in your shoe and download the information off the computer chip they've put in your shoe and know where you are and who you are. So we, having seen these shoes demonstrated actually at trade shows, most recently in Dallas just 2 months ago, having seen on page 38 in Spy Chips, we have a photograph of a Calvin Klein clothing label where you can actually see the microchip in the antenna right in the clothing label that would be sewn right into somebody's shirt. So we are working on legislation around the country that would require a label so that we consumers can at least be informed. Right now, it's perfectly legal for a company to insert a microchip, antenna, RFID tag into anything you own and use it to track you. There's nothing in any of the 50 states that would prevent them from doing that. And what's more, they don't have to tell you they've done it because these things can be so easily hidden. They can be sandwiched into shoes, sewn into the labels of, or into the seams of clothing. They can be slipped into plastic of things as they're molded at the factory in such a way that you'd never know they were there.
So you can't even cry invasion of privacy because you don't even know they've done that.
That's the whole thing, and that's where the lobbyists here in New Hampshire, we've been working on this bill for months now, and if anybody's in New Hampshire, please drop me a line because I'll put you to work this weekend to try to get our bill passed because it's up for a vote next week. KMA@spychips.com, drop me a line if you're in New Hampshire. But basically,
caller on the line.
Hold on 1 second. Let Catherine finish her one thought, and then I'll go right to you.
Well, they sent out lobbyists from all over the country to fight our legislation that does nothing but say you have to tell us where they are. And they had 57 bogus reasons for why they couldn't do it. I've never heard such a bunch of baloney in my life. But anyway, the industry doesn't want to